think that would be great. You go real slow, do the same thing. I tried that too.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's always gonna be 30% that don't like it. I don't want it.
Yeah, I went there. I was here with.
Okay.
Wow, I had to go-
Welcome to the Planning and Development Board meeting of January 13th, 2024. First thing I'd like to do is have a roll call.
Michael Boyd,
Here.
Timothy Connor, Jack Corbett,
Here.
Michael Goodman,
Here.
Mark Langello,
Here.
Anthony Lombardo,
Here.
and then we have Fernando Melendez is excused.
So we have a quorum. The next thing I do is a pledge the flag. Please stand and join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, item number 3 is the approval of the January 9th minutes. Anyone,
We just see one error on it, number 4. We had states that Michael Boyd appointed Anthony Lombardo, and it was really the other way around. Anthony Lombardo appointed Michael Boyd.
okay, that's a good catch. We can make that change. Any other corrections?
Nothing I know of.
Can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, motion is made in second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Nope. Okay, that goes through. This is a quasi-judicial meeting. We would ask the audience to refrain from clapping, booing, and shouts of approval or disagreement to avoid potential legal ramifications and possible overturning of a decision by the courts. A public hearing must be fair in 3 respects: form, substance, and appearance. Generally speaking, the staff will have 10 minutes for its presentation. The applicant will have 15 minutes. The public gets 3 minutes unless they represent a group, and they get 5 minutes then the applicant will have an applicant rebuttal, and the staff will have closing comments, and those each will be 10 minutes. Okay, item number 4, quasi-judicial meeting. We're asking for any ex parte communication. Anyone have any ex parte? Seeing none. This is project number 2023-100039, site development plan, PUD district. Adam?
This one is, builds off of the development to the south, and you may recognize this maybe a little bit. This is in Hunter's Ridge. This is part of the Iris, formerly known as Iris development. This is the second development happening within the portion of Hunter's Ridge outside of Phase 1A. So this is all occurring north of Airport Road. These are the first 2 developments we had, Celadine to the east, Iris to the west, and this is Gardenside Phase 2, the second phase of what had previously been known as Iris. And so if you remember, Iris dates back to 2016, I think, and prior owner of the DRI master developer, and that now it's coming forward, and this then will be known ultimately as Gardenside Phase 2 at Ormond Station. And so that it'll have a bit of a different naming convention also, and a different feel to it with a new home builder also coming in. So on the land use map, just we expect as part of the DRI, mixed use, low intensity, part of the PUD, planned unit development, and then all outside of a special flood hazard area. This is Zone X, so this is not within the special flood hazard area. And then the soils having a mix. We do have some depressional areas that also will be indicative of wetlands, but predominantly having the fine sands that are there. And then just what you expect with the wetland inventory map, there is that portion of the wetlands, remembering that wetland mitigation is happening within the portion of the property to the west in the conservation area that we have received from the developer. So there will be mitigation credits available to the developer for any wetland impacts that cannot be avoided within these developable areas to the east side of that conservation area. And here's the layout. If you'll remember, I think it was the phase one that had the 3 lot types also, the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so this has the 40s, 50s, and 60s, similar to the development, the phase one development to the south. This then being that northern extension is going to take that Iris Branch Boulevard, I think is what it was called, extending up along the west side of the property. And so, and then you'll have these 89, I think, additional lots. And then also that includes the roadway utility extension, then also to serve this area. This gives you an idea of some of the wetlands that are involved. And then it gives you also a feel for some of the phasing, that this was part of the plan, showed the phase one to the south that was previously approved, that is under construction now, and then phase two and how that'll fit in to the north. And again, some of those wetland impacts depicted here, some of that area that will remain in preservation to the south, that's not going to be impacted by this development. And then we also had, as part of the plan set, what we've been looking for previously, the temporary sales centers. This is the graphic that shows a sample temporary sales center, remembering that up to 5 of the lots can be used for model home purposes, along with those then temporary sales purposes, and how that will look then in a graphic form, with that parking lot then removed at the time when it's ready for transitioning from a temporary sales center. These are those dimensional requirements taken from the agreement, and so we've got the 4,350 square feet on the minimum lot size, 40-foot lot width, as I mentioned, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and then you've got your lot depth that's there. Minimum living area, 1,250 square feet. Nothing too special there. 5-yard side setbacks, which previously have been somewhat contentious for us, but I think we worked through those. And you do have the differing corner setbacks for each of those, depending on the lot width, the 40-foot at 11 feet, 50 at 12.5, and 60 at 14 feet. And so we do have that mix of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. If my math is right, 26 40-foot wide lots, at 29% of the lots, 45 50-foots, and basically half of those, and then 18 of them at 60 and the 20%. They're interspersed throughout the development. You do have the 2 access points, Iris Branch Boulevard along the west, the roadway to the north. It's going to come back eventually to Hunters Ridge Boulevard. It has a mail kiosk parcel, and then site development plan includes a temporary sales center detail, as I mentioned. The options available for the board: approval of the PUD site development plan, PUD development agreement for garden site at Ormond Station Phase 2, denial. And if the board recommends denial to the Board of County Commissioners, we'd ask that you state the cause for the recommendation for denial. If you choose then to continue it, and to continue it to a time and date certain, will preserve some of our notice. But we'd also ask then that you, if you choose to continue, give direction to myself or the applicant so that we can come back at that next date and provide that extra information to you. Kim Bucks, present on behalf of the applicant. With that, I'll close, await any questions or comments. Submit my report for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Adam. Does any of the board have any questions for staff? I have a question, but I'm going to wait for applicant to make their presentation. They may answer it. This is the applicant presentation. Kim, if you would identify yourself.
Good evening. I'm Kimberly Buck with the Allen Engineering Group, and I'm really just here to answer any questions. I think Adam did a good job.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Part of this legal description was in Volusia County?
No,
No.
should
Okay.
not have been.
I have to make a disclosure, as staff knows. My iPad kept crashing, and I could not read this correctly, so I tried. So anyway, all right. I thought I did see something on a legal description about Volusia County, so. but
There may
that's-
have been something,
It was in the 40 pages of legal description of legal stuff that described where the property was, and I thought it said Volusia County, but
okay, so probably what you're looking at is the original legal descriptions that we have are, encompass the whole development. And some
Okay.
of that occurs in Volusia County, but
Okay.
this particular site is wholly in Flagler.
okay. And the second question, I'm going to ask you, and maybe you have it. If not, I'll ask Adam if it's required. But there are no amenities with this site? Are there any amenities with this site?
No, there are not. We are putting the amenities in with the school site. We do have another park that's going to be coming in on the opposite side of the road. If you see the big pond there that we're putting in, on the other side, there's going to be a dog park. Yep, right in
Is
there.
that in the PUD for this?
It is not in the PUD. It is not a requirement for this particular section, but the builder is planning to put that in sooner rather than later. So I'm not quite sure if that has to go through site plan review or a PUD.
Adam, was there any requirement for amenities with a certain amount of lot? I'm not sure what we have right now.
Wait, yeah, way this was set up, you did have in the DRI, we had kind of trigger points with the, as it's referred to as clusters. And so certain clusters then had recreational amenities went along with them, and this one did not have that. The Brookside, I think, is the school site. Is that right?
Right.
And so Brookside's that one. If you remember, maybe a couple of months ago, maybe even last month, we had brought it forward, and it's got the kind of the amenities at this stage for Ormond Station, and those are kind of the TBA. We had them shown on Brookside. And to give you some orientation, that parcel is just, I wonder if I can show it on this other one. Yeah, it's pretty close.
To the south and west of it.
Kind of right down here is where, and so it's just to the south and west of this development. So within walking distance, but
And the
that's
owners
one.
will have complete access to it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and is that in their DRI, or is it a requirement that
It'll-
would
it'll be-
trip
it'll-
when that happens?
It's within their sub HOA, and within the Brookside, it's a 30%. I think it was a lot development.
30%. So at 30% of lot sales, they have to have that amenity in place.
Of Brookside,
Yes,
not of this one.
correct. Brookside.
Okay.
And just also to kind of piggyback what Adam said, if you recall, the DRI has multiple recreational areas that serve the development as a whole. So we have separate recreation sites that we're developing as we go along. And like I said, the dog park will be coming in, probably in the not too distant future once we figure out what the developer how they want to design it. But it'll be probably the next park that'll come in.
Okay, and again, I have to apologize because I could not read this whole thing. We do have all utilities, water and sewer and everything accounted for on this, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's the agreement with Ormond Beach, and so that's all been taken care of through a retail sales agreement with Ormond Beach.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Jack?
so the land that's, I guess that would be east of the pond, is that future development or just open space or?
East of the pond is conservation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Kim. At this point, I'd like to open this up to public hearing. Anyone like to make any comments on this application, please step forward and identify yourself. Seeing no one come forward, I'll close public hearing. So we don't need a rebuttal at this point here. Does anyone like to have any comments or a motion?
Yes, sir. I'll make a motion. We approve the application.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. You guys got that? Okay. Any other comments on the motion? Okay, all those, I assume the motion was as written by staff, correct? The motion was as presented by staff. Yeah. Any, no other comments? Okay. This time I'll take a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 5. Again, quasi-judicial. Do we have anyone that has any thing to disclose? Ex parte want to disclose? No. Okay, this is project number 2023-120052. It's variance in the PUD district. Adam?
The subject property is at 7 Hanover Drive. Here's the graphic that shows, this is before the home was constructed. So there's now a home there. property appraiser, I think it's just from last year, so that the home's, of course, very recent in its construction. This is an after-the-fact variance, and so we've got our land use map, residential low-density, single-family, I think is that putty color, and then PUD, planned unit development, for the entirety of the project. And then Zone X, not part of a special flood hazard area, and our soil is just what we would expect also, no soil issues. And then because of that, no wetlands. This is part of the Bulow complex on the soils, and then no wetlands areas within this. And then off of the plat, this is in Fairchild Oaks, right? The plat, and I had the excerpt of this in the staff report. I also had the full plat for you to look at. Lot 81's a bit unique because it has on its left side, on the north side, it has a 10-foot drainage and utility easement. And so this isn't something that the others have. The others have a 5-foot drainage and utility that works well with the 7.5-foot side setbacks. The problems we've had before where we're trying to accommodate for eaves, remembering that our land development code does not allow any portion of a structure to extend within a drainage or utility easement. No portion of your structure can extend into an easement. That's in our Article 4 requirements for platting. And so we've had this kind of rub in the past where if you had a setback and a drainage easement that coincided, or a drainage or utility easement that was bigger than your minimum setback, that when we measure the setbacks, we measure from the foundation, the wall of the home, and don't take into account the eave. Well, then, and this is when these problems come up, is when you have, as would happen here on the north side, on the left side setback, internal to that 10-foot is the 7.5-foot minimum setback. So on that side, if you're meeting the setback, you're good, because you have to be at least 10 feet out. You have to be outside of the easement. And so that side, we were good. We were at, I think, 11.6. We were actually even a little bit more to the good. Assuming then, I think you had the reduction in the narrative in the amount of the eave that was there. But then that shift, without having the home get smaller, made us tight on the right side, on the south side, because then we weren't encroaching into the 5-foot drainage and utility easement, but we ended up encroaching into the 7.5-foot minimum setback. So you'll see it here in these graphics. The initial one showing the 10.2 and the 7.8, 10.2 to the left, north side, 7.8 to the right, south side. Let me see if I can show that a little bit better with my cursor. So 10.2 here, and then 7.8. So this was the initial submittal. Planning comments came back saying, no, can't do that on the 10.2 because you're right up to that drainage and utility easement. You're not accommodating the eave. So the response then was to provide a setback distance to accommodate the eave. So that moved from back from 10.2 to 11.6, and then we were at 6.4. And so that was a win, we thought. And again, we probably didn't accommodate for the eve. This second or now third submittal comes in and just had an emphasis on the finished floor elevation for the home and the garage, 27, 26.5, just adding clarity to the drawing before, where before we had finished floor elevation at 28. This time it's no, we didn't need that, because the other part that was in play here is that all you had to do is be 1 foot above the crown of the adjacent road when you're outside of the special flood hazard area. And did we have the crown here? Yeah, what was it at? 24.03 is the crown. And so, we have some extra amount that's there. Certainly you can be higher if you like, but in this case, they came back just because of the cost to fill and cut it down a little bit. But our minimum requirement outside of special flood hazard area, the finished floor elevation of your home, minimum 1 foot above the crown of the adjacent roadway. And then this drawing came in and had the expansion of the driveway. So if you can see here, this was the next in that succession of plans that came in. And I think it was this one and maybe the one before it that didn't get any planning review at all. I think I had that in the comments in the narrative. So that this one, we didn't see it at all on the planning side. This one had the increased width there for the driveway throat from, I think it was 16 to 20 and back to 38 with the hammerhead at close to the front of the home. And then when the final survey came in, then we had the problem because it was showing a 6.5 foot side setback. And actually arguably had been approved previously, because I think we were thinking as staff the concern was the drainage and utility easement that was there, and less the idea that the 7.5-foot setback was in play. So part of the argument that the applicant put out, and with cause, was that, you know, staff had said this was okay before, and then came back and now had a problem at the time of final survey. And so we'll, to the degree that we need to own responsibility on that, we can see where that happened in the progression of the drawings that came in. And so you can see on the left hand, the north side, 11.4, we're to the good. We're accommodating the home and the eave. We're staying outside of the drainage easement. On the right side, south side, we have the bad. We're outside of the drainage and utility easement with the eave, but we are within the minimum 7.5-foot setback. 5 foot being that drainage and utility easement on the right side, south side. All that, permits issued based on the approved site plan. Final survey came in showing a 6.5-foot right south side setback. We did issue a temporary certificate of occupancy. This doesn't happen very often, but we did it because we felt we were complicit in our reviews. Came back and said this was good, and then came back at the end and said, no, it wasn't good. And again, having this as being an after-the-fact variance. And so to the degree that we had the hardship I wanted to go through, have this on the record, have us be able to grant this variance if that's something the board chooses to do, which hopefully you will. And then that way we can then correct this for time and all posterity that follows. And so they won't have any issues later on when they come forward. It's just for the home. This isn't for any accessory structures or anything that's going to happen. But then in that course of events that happen subsequent to these moments, if something came up in the future, sale, whatever it would be, the approval of this variance would show that they had gone through that extra step, and it wasn't just the staff oversight that let this happen. With that, I'll close. I do have those options available for the 1-foot south side yard setback variance approved. And the basis of that, if anything I could offer, would be the uniqueness of this lot 81 because of that 10-foot to the north and then the 5-foot to the south on the drainage and utility easements. Among its peers, that's unique. You didn't have that anywhere else. On the others, you just have 5 foot on the sides, 10 foot on this one. Denial could be also an option for you. And with that, we'd ask that you give reasons for the denial. And then the third option would be continue it to a time and date certain. With that, give us homework, and we'll come back and try to answer your questions. With that, I'll close, await any questions or comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mangle. Anyone have any questions for staff? Just because I was turning the pages over here, the difference was the setback did not account for the eave, but the utility easement does. Is that what you were saying?
So we asked them on the initial drawing to move it from the 10.2. We were saying the problem was the eave.
Yeah, but our setback does not, our setback, as you said, is to the foundation.
Correct.
So why were we moving it back for the eave if it is the foundation? Why did we ask to move it?
Because on the first set of drawings, the 10.2 would have had the eave extend into the drainage and utility easement.
Okay, so that was my question. So it doesn't matter for the setback. It was the easement that was the problem. The easement, you can't have any encroachment.
Initially. And so in moving the home southward to accommodate staff's comment and keeping the same footprint, the owner builder.
It's an easement issue when it started the question.
Correct.
It was not
Correct.
the setback issue.
Correct. And then it created a setback issue.
Okay. All right, at this point, this is the applicant's turn. If the applicant would like to come up and make a presentation, please identify yourself and tell us where you live.
Yes, I'm Richard Link. I live in that house right there, 7 Hanover Drive.
Good enough.
Beautiful, beautiful home. No, just like the previous applicant, no questions that I have. You did a good job. If you have any questions for me, I'd love to answer them.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? If I have a question, so if it's staff's fault, does that mean that staff is going to pay to move the house? You don't have to answer that, Adam. You don't have to answer that.
Or the application fee.
Okay, if there's no other, all right, at this point, I'd like to, thank you very much. I'd like to open up the public. Anyone in the audience like to come up and speak on this variance, please do so now. Seeing no one come up, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the board. Anyone have any comments or motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I think in this case, the solution would far outweigh the problem. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the application.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, a second by Mr. Goodman. Do we have any other discussion on the motion? Okay, and just for clarity, it does meet all the criteria as we talked about. First, one is unique to the lot, and all the other criteria. So at that point, I would like to call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the variance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nope, the variance is approved, and we're done. Thank you very much. Okay, number 6, also quasi-judicial, requiring any ex parte communication. Does anyone have any ex parte communication on this one? Okay, this is application 2024-01-0029, another variance in the PUD. Adam?
This one's located at 42 Audubon Lane, also an after-the-fact variance. This one, vacant lot, shows up here on the property appraiser aerial, lot 66. This is important here in what it shows you beyond. And so this line that you see on the graphic for the property appraiser corresponds to what had been previously identified on the plat for Sugar Mill as a building line. And then you had an area to the rear identified as retention and an area further back identified as conservation area. And the inexplicable for us now, the extent of these lots here, all of these lots, from 69 all the way down to, I think it was down to 59 or 60, had the rear of the lot as depicted included additional area, retention and conservation. Hindsight is that was not a good idea. As you can imagine, when the problems came with trying to have water management district permitting, dedication of these areas, or at least maintenance by some party other than the lot owner, you shouldn't have that within the lot boundaries. Quick rule of thumb, if it's in my boundaries, and this is Adam saying is Adam Joe Public, not Adam Planner, enforcing the rules, but if I'm there and it's within my boundaries, I'm going to go and mow it, fence it, it's my land. However, in this situation, you would not only have retention area behind your lot, your buildable area, but you'd also have conservation area. Bad practice. Not something we would do now. Now we would have tracks. And that's what you ended up having happen here, kind of in an after-the-fact type situation. So the way this looks in the land use map, mixed use low is present, PUD being the zoning, the zone X outside the special flood hazard area, and then the soil bimini sand, so we don't have anything that's a wetland that we're anticipating. We do have some, though, when you see it on that back part that's within that conservation area, so kind of beyond that boundary that's there behind the retention, you've got some of this showing up as wetland. And so then from the plat, you've got this building line, as I mentioned, that shows up. This is the excerpt from the plat drawn in here, and then you'd have this area, this arrow here at the bottom pointed to the retention area, the amount of retention area at the back of each of these lots, and then conservation area. So then, as you can imagine, seeing these boundaries here as it's drawn, this would be the platted extent of lot 66. As I'm showing you with the cursor now. So you'd have an area up to a building line that you could more or less do what you wish with, and then an area beyond that would be a retention area, and then an area beyond that conservation. We believe it was a water management district that raised the stink with this and came back and said this is a problem. So that when we looked at the records in 2004, there was a quit claim from the developer to the HOA that said, hey, this is something that if beyond the building line, east of the building line, these areas need to go into some ownership other than individual lot ownership. We've had a succession over the years of some permits coming in showing the limits of the lots ending at the building line. Emphasize this point back here, and what you can see in the taxable side of this is that now property appraisers showing it as the limit of your lot is to the building line. that these lot owners don't own beyond that, that there is a separate parcel now owned by the HOA that's in that area identified as a retention area. Conservation area, a little different. That, whatever reason, ended up being put into the most of this area, at least the area we can see here, into the same ownership as lots 68, 69, and 70. I think it was because of the lot owner at the time had handled some of the issues related to the legalities of this and had it put into their portion of the resulting lot area. It's within their ownership, but realizing from the district standpoint and from what you saw previously that that's all wetland, that cannot be built on anyway. Retention area being all within its own parcel, subject to HOA maintenance as part of that retention through their stormwater permitting. So here's those setbacks, what those look like. And so when we had those mix of those surveyed lots coming in, some surveys showing the platted limits with the additional retention, additional conservation area, some showing the limits to the building line. It's been kind of a hodgepodge that we've had. We would measure the setbacks from that rear building line when it would show that as being the building line limit, the limits of the lot. If it showed the platted limits, depending on which staff was looking at it and the awareness of it, we would look and say, oh, that your lot continues further over. You're more than great on the setback. We have no problem. And so then that's where we have the disparity in kind of what had happened here with this. This particular property actually had a house built. So we had the home built, and you can see here, and I apologize for not zooming in on this, but I have the measurement in the actual motion for you. But here's that closest corner of the home to the building line. So realizing that this area here is the retention area that's shown to the back, conservation, what's labeled as conservation easement. That is correct. It is an easement to the district, but it's that mix of the retention area owned by the HOA, now separate parcel, with the conservation easement now owned by the parcel owner for lot 68, 69, and 70. So we finished out the home permit. This got caught when we had the pool permit come in, and the pool contractor was attempting to go for a pool final. Remembering that you have the 30-foot for the rear as the minimum setback, as we were measuring it from the building line, the rear of the parcel, and then the 20-foot for the pool. And so that's what prompted us to get to this point with this application, and this one came in. Again, county having a bit of unclean hands with this because we had finalized out the home. And then when the pool came in, we said, oh, no, this is wrong. And so then that's what's prompted us with the variance now. So just for the record, can't emphasize it enough, building line here that's shown, and then we're westward of the building line itself.
Adam, excuse me, that quick claim happened prior to the building of that home?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so just wanted to show too, for the record, just one more time, but we had some discussion about this. Just want to make sure y'all see that 174.56 being this measure from the pin to this back line. I just want to make sure I'm seeing it correctly too. So along that north line, the left line, the left side line of the lot, and then here on the plat, 174.56. And so just to confirm that we are talking about the building line there. And so what you're seeing here is as depicted at the rear here is the rear of the taxable parcel, also identified as the building line on the plat. So just want to make sure everybody's seeing that. And so I think I've hit all this. What we had, the two variances are part of this. Survey submitted, kind of mix of those hodgepodge that we've had over the years. We had the CO for the home. Pool permit remains open, and if a variance is issued, this will allow us, to proceed with the closing out of the pool permit. The variance then will allow the home and pool to remain. Both of these are being presented as after-the-fact variances. And so with this approval, then would have a 15.3-foot rear east yard setback for the dwelling from the minimum 30-foot rear setback, and a 3.3-foot rear east yard setback variance for a swimming pool from the minimum 20-foot rear yard pool setback. And so remembering you've got those two in play, 15.3 for the home, 3.3 foot for the pool. And emphasizing, I think I put in the staff report, pool pool deck, screen enclosure, all that's included within that, so that we all consider that to be synonymous. If they, I think they had a pool and pool deck, and I don't remember seeing a screen room, but maybe they'd had that in there also. But all those we would allow and would have observing the same 3.3 foot rear variance if that was part of this the approval. Then denial would just be on the basis that the guidelines have not been met, and you deny one or both of those requested variance, and continuance would be for something for us to come back with. We were intending to carry the burden here for Mr. Smith. He's not present, and so the homeowners are not present here for this. And certainly, I'll entertain any questions you have on behalf of the owner. I'll do my best. We do have representation from Homeowners Association. There may also be some adjacent owners that may want to provide public comments. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll close, wait any questions or comments, and submit my report for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, we'll hear from the homeowners at the public comment
Yes,
part. Does anyone have any questions for staff? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Adam, the retention area, is that like a typical retention, is that like a pond area, or is it just a buffer?
Yeah, it shows up as kind of a dry retention bed, and you can see, and what it's got some elevation to it. I don't remember, and I didn't think there was anything that was there real formal. I think it was just, and it's, I guess legitimately you really can't tell the distinction between conservation and retention, although conservation gets really wet, I think is what I understood to be the case. Retention less so, and that the district overall wanted to make sure that no private encroachments happened into these areas. And so I think that was the real rub that happened in 2004, is that, by having it within the lot boundaries, there was some issues with that. And then the cutout, the quitclaim to the homeowner association fixed that.
Any other board questions for staff? Adam, it appears to me that there is something unique with this property in that both these two lots, the one in question and the one to the south of it, are first of all the smallest ones on that block, which in hindsight, after the quick claim deed, did not give them a lot of room to operate. But also that it is unique that they have the retention in conservation areas already behind them that was part of their land. And as you said, it was even missed by staff and missed by surveyors in the point. So it seems like criteria 1 or A or whatever is probably could be satisfied. Okay, at this point, I'd like to open it up to the homeowner association or anyone in the public who'd like to come up and speak on it. Please identify yourself and where you live.
Yes, my name is John Siberis. I live at 47 Audubon Lane. I'm the president with the Sugar Mill Homeowners Association. With me is Eugene. He's with he's a secretary, but I'll be the spokesperson. This whole thing in 2004 was a mess, okay? Retention area, there was lawsuits, things of that nature. The retention area is not the wetlands. It was, homeowners were given the thought that that would be their property, and it really wasn't their property, it was HOA property. With Brian Smith, what they did, our concern, bottom line, gentlemen, our concern is this is the last lot on this area, so we're not going to have any more issues. This lot here, we measured it ourselves, but if I would really like to have it, as you say, Adam, you're sure
Yes, sir.
it's not past the building line. It's not past the building line. We understand. We have no problem with it. So if you want to approve it, that's okay, and you'll never hear from this subdivision with this type of issue again, thank goodness, okay? So take that in consideration, but we are okay with it as long as it didn't go past the building line on any portion, okay?
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to come forward and speak on the item? Seeing no one come forward, I'll bring it back to staff. Adam, I have one other question too. So the house to the south, according to the aerial picture, it looks like it also encroaches? Yeah, go back to one of those pictures there. The ones 65 and 64, those look like do they encroach as well? And if they do, if you want, please come up to the microphone so we can hear you. Yeah, we're going to almost treat you like the applicant because there isn't an applicant
No,
here.
please don't, because this was
But go
from
ahead.
a while ago. When those homes were built, that retention area, which they thought was theirs, and that they would use that property, because you had the building line, you had the property line. So if you had that 30 feet, they would go from that property line back to the building line, and you were fine, no problem. But it really wasn't, it was really HOA. But they signed a quick claim deed, it was like a lawsuit, and everyone agreed that as long as they cut the grass, I think, Adam, you mentioned, if they cut the grass and things like that, it would be fine, but you couldn't go and start building anything else
No, but my
on
question
that.
was, are the houses on those two lots, 65 and 64, are those houses encroaching on that 30-foot?
That 30-foot,
Yeah, and, you know, I mean, by visual, look at it,
I
Looks like
I
they
would
do.
say, yes, because the one at 64,
and they're not being brought forward because they're not asking for a swimming pool right now.
no,
But-
let's see, 64
Was 64
We did a
was that our
variance.
pool?
I was here for their variance
Yeah.
also, they did a pool,
64 got the variance,
correct.
66 is asking for it now, but 65 is closer than 64. Okay, I just wanted to know, because it seems like the remedy here, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, not for the rest of the board, is to approve this, but 65 needs to be approved, and this obviously needs to be, at some point, cleaned up for future, you know, people who own that, and it goes back and you get a survey to sell the lot, and then this comes up as an encroachment, and now it could interfere with, you know, a lot of issues down the road when this is clearly not of their making and unique to the property, so,
And that was the problem with 64, with worrying if he was going to sell his house, there would be a problem. And then there was a problem with, right now, the only thing I'm concerned about is for Brian's.
no, I hear you, I mean, but it looks like there's this is a bigger problem than the one
It was
lot.
it was a big problem, and the homeowner lost his home with the lawsuit. The homeowners association, the homeowners, we spent about $460,000 in legal fees. And we're lucky if we get 20,000 back. Not that we wanted to do it, but the
Right.
previous board, they did it, and that's what happened. So last one, we're done. Didn't go past the building line. We're good, and I hope you
Thank you.
gentlemen will be good.
Thank
with
you very
it.
much.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question. If
Sure.
So that association property, retention area is the association property. Does the association do any maintenance on that property or not really?
Yeah, please, again, hate to have you, please come to the microphone. You are being recorded.
So at one time, there was availability where homeowners could go back to the retention area. They could use it for whatever they want to use it for, like if you want to have a picnic or something like that. But then when the lot was sold, it was like a corner lot. You can't see it from here. I think it's 50 Audubon. They had like a double lot. That was used up, so you couldn't even have access, the HOA couldn't even have access to get to it. So,
Okay,
does
Thank you.
that Answer your question?
yeah. So really, nobody.
So nobody
it's not
really,
maintained any by association at all.
the art committee could go back there and look at it anytime, and
Right.
when
But
St.
there's not like
John's-
routine mowing or
No,
nothing to
no.
do on a
Actually, they
routine-
signed, the homeowners back there signed an agreement that they would take care of it for 10 years. And then after the 10 years, we don't know what happened after that, or what happens after that.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Hopefully, we won't have you run back up again. Any other questions from the board? Okay, at this point, again, one more time, anyone else want to come forward? Seeing not, okay, I'll close public hearing. And bring it back to the board. Does anyone want to make any comments or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the application.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Second by Mr. Boyd. We have any other discussion? Again, I just wanted to say in two parts. One, I think we meet all the criteria just for our technical. Also, is that, do I remember, is that the one that had an eagle on 64? Was that the one with the eagle nest or something? A few years ago, we heard, no, you guys didn't know, okay. I remember we heard some variant somewhere in that area about an eagle and they couldn't, I don't know. All right, but if that neighbor needs to come forward, I'm assuming we're in the same boat with that one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the variance, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, the variance is approved. Okay, that is number 6. Number 7, again, quasi judicial hearing. Any ex parte communication from anyone? Seeing none. This one is project number 2023-120072, site development plan in the industrial district. Adam?
Yes, sir. So you know the spot, Storage Central, the official numbering of the driveway access for them is County Road 202. This had some earlier life. If you remember, there had actually been a previous site plan years ago for storage on this, and then more recently it's had a different configuration. And so you can see here from the aerial the extent of the buildings as they were under I think slab with this photo that was done. And so this has at the rear to the west, you can see the railroad tracks. That's what's shown there. That's the FEC right of way, and then US Highway 1 south there to the east side. On the land use map, this is industrial. Zoning is also industrial, not part of a special flood hazard area. All of it's Zone X, and just what we would figure with all of that, not part of a national wetlands inventory map, wetland area, so we don't have any wetlands in play. And this is that copy of the site plan that you had in your packet. And so what's actually going on here, two things, but I emphasized it in the staff report that I had, and what we had talked about with the applicant is our floor area ratio that we have in the comprehensive plan. The floor area ratio is 0.45 with a 70% maximum impervious, and that's for an industrial district. And the way we've looked at that is areas devoted to use, not necessarily conditioned space. In this case, it would be inclusive of your 3 areas that are covered there, that are provided covered RV parking. And so you have these, you can see them here in the drawing, all of that being part of your floor area effectively. And so you have this area that's conditioned space along basically the east side of the property, along the south, and then along the west. There's an addition that's proposed with this. It's a 1-story addition. So that looks like, here's the detail from this again, the county road driveway that's here along the north side of the property, US 1 to the top of this drawing, railroad tracks to the south at the bottom. And so you'd have both the 2,100 square foot, 1-story extra area that's added that kind of finishes out that line that would abut the pond and the railroad tracks along its more or less west side. But more important, the consideration for us was this area in the center, the 2-story storage, climate-controlled additional self-storage area. Originally, that came in 3 stories. Can we do that? Well, that's gonna bust the floor area ratio. That was too high. And so we kind of went back and forth some options we didn't want to see them do, where they were going to potentially take away some of the covered RV storage that's very lucrative for them with their business that we think is something that's needed. So we didn't want to see that happening. We're realizing we're part of our comp plan update right now, and honestly, I can't tell you if 0.45 is unreasonable with our peer communities or if it isn't. Realizing that we're unincorporated county area, we're not supposed to exactly have heavy urban anyway. But is 0.45 high or low? And so we're kind of leaving the pretext here of maybe as part of this, our comp plan update may come back and say, more reasonably would be 0.5 or 0.55 or 0.6 for your floor area ratio, and still having 70% maximum impervious that's in play. And so what I wanted to do with this more than anything else is to concentrate on the footprint that's here, the 190.5 by the 200, and realizing that storage is a little unique because we all know in practice, the parking generator that we have for something like this, and be straight up about it, we don't have it in our land development code. We don't have something because of the age of our code. There wasn't a preponderance of mini storage. And so the closest we'd have is the 1 per 1,000 square foot of warehousing. We did have a criteria that we provided here for the office And then we had some math that we provided. There's, I think, 16 provided parking spaces that are there around the office. And then knowing the utilization of these facilities, you don't have to have an abundance of parking, an abundance of hardscape for this. The operation is more of someone comes in, they drive to the front of their unit, they spend 10, 15, 30 minutes, maybe an hour tinkering with their stuff, and then they drive off. And so that formal parking is not often what you see. You do need to have the clear areas around these buildings for fire protection, for a fire response. But beyond that, you're not having something that's very, very hardscape oriented, at least as far as having off-street parking associated with this. So what I was getting at was the idea that if that floor area ratio did change, is that potential there for the third story to be added to this? And so I've kind of geared everything up, assuming that this is the site table from your site plans you had in your packet, and pulling this out and showing that as they proposed it presently, they are at the maximum on that floor area ratio at the 45%, with the total building coverage at 166,435. And then the impervious, they still got a little bit left there, but I don't think there's a real push on that. You have the 70% maximum. They're at 68% right now. And again, we did provide the parking that's there, and total parking that they've worked out, 13 standard, 1 handicap, and then storage associated with it with the hardscape, giving them arguably some 90 spaces that aren't formally lined out with curb stops. Total parking across the site of 104 parking spaces, but realizing that out of those, the predominant parking that we're looking at is the 14 spaces that are around the office. So existing building, existing use, you have an increase there with a 2,100 square foot in the 1-story, the 857, and the new 2-story self-storage. Dimensions of the footprint of the building, 190.5 by 200, that one with the 2-story that potentially could grow to 3. FAR at 45% with the 166,435, impervious at 251,539, 68%. And then what I wanted to do is lay the groundwork that if that FAR did increase, do we really care? Could they go ahead and add that third story owing to the footprint staying the same, storage use still in place? Would they have to come back and amend the site plan when we're looking at it in a two-dimensional fashion? And my feeling would be we would not have to come back for that, and hopefully the planning board would agree with that approach. With that, I've put in conditions, some of which speak to the building itself and would need to be then met if that third story did get added. So you have some fire-related requirements that I'll go through here just right now. The approval, if you choose to approve this, we have the following conditions. A, all improvements required to be in place, operable, and inspected prior to the initiation of the expanded use on the parcel. So before you have something open, you got to have everything else working. We expect that. B, meeting radio signal strength requirements for NFPA 1, Chapter 11, 11.10.2 General. In all new and existing buildings, minimum radio signal strength for emergency services department communications shall be maintained at a level determined by the AHJ or agency having jurisdiction, so that's our radio communications internal to the building. We see that now. It's something that's a bit of a challenge for us because you can model it, but you really don't know when it works until the building's built. And so you're kind of chasing this thing, and it can be costly. And you see it in large buildings, more so in metropolitan areas, less so for us, but it is still a concern. Think about you when you're on your cell phone and you're at the backside of Target. And that seems to be the time when it hits me. And so this is supposed to be the one for your public safety providers, not for your cell service. But what mainly it does is it requires the installation of a radio repeater inside the building that allows for their signal to be able to be boosted and be able to then reach our towers. And it's got some heavy modeling. I don't know if that's really going to be a concern here because there's a tower that's pretty close. Sometimes close towers don't help us. That's a cell tower, though, that's close, and I don't think that's one that's necessarily a public safety communications tower. But again, these are conditions that are within the NFPA 1 and what we're recommending there for these to be met on that opening basis and continuing basis. Sprinkler system requirement as item C. automatic fire sprinkler system within mini storage building per NFPA 1, Chapter 13, 13.3.2.27.4, mini storage building automatic sprinkler system shall be installed throughout all mini storage buildings greater than 2,500 square feet, and where any of the individual storage units are separated by less than a 1 hour fire resistance rated barrier. And so, you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can go, if I'm reading that right, you can go greater than a 1 hour fire resistance rated barrier. And so if you don't have the sprinklering, there's other ways to meet that. Here, obviously, we have a concern with the source of water that's available. And so that's a condition that is also reflected in NFPA 1, more to make sure we're including that in there. And the applicants may want to speak about that directly if that's a concern. And then D, what we put in, should the county's comprehensive plan be amended, and this is the real crux of what I was trying to get at before, I don't have a concern, hopefully the board won't either, if the floor area ratio is increased, then the applicant or their successors could come in, potentially put a third floor on that building. And the timing of this being as it is, or maybe even a fourth floor, so long as the footprints match what was on the January 23rd, 2024 Newkirk Engineering site plan. If they want to change something, they'd have to come back in and amend the site plan. Then they'd come back here. But if they're still working with that existing footprint, we're still storage, I don't see a reason for them to have to come back to you. You could deny this for cause, give us some insight on that so that both us and the applicant can figure out what we're going to do from there. And then, or you could continue this to a time and date certain. And again, continuance, we'd like to give, like for y'all to give us some guidance on what that reason for the continuance would be. With that, I'll close, wait any questions or comments, submit my report for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Adam. Does anyone have any questions for staff? Mike?
Yeah, I'm not clear on that, Adam. So is a sprinkler system a requirement?
As it's been described, if you're, and I don't have, well, I do have that quote from the NFPA. It's greater than 2,500 and where any of the individual storage units are separated by less than a 1 hour fire resistance rated barrier. So if I'm reading that right, you got both of those in place. So we're going to have the greater than 2,500 square feet. We know that's going to happen with the big building. And then the second condition is where any of the individual storage units are separated by less than a 1 hour fire resistance rated barrier. And so if I'm reading that right, you can go greater than a 1 hour fire resistance rated barrier, and then you don't have to sprinkle.
That's between each unit.
And I don't know how cost effective that is. You'd know, and that may just make it where it doesn't make sense depending on the number of units you have in there. But
And Adam, I'm going to piggyback on that question because that is a 2024 change to the code?
I don't know if that's I don't know if that was current. I'm assuming it's current code. I don't know if it's 2024 or not. No, I can't answer that for you.
Is there signal repeater or the requirement to have the emergency signal? Is that also a new improvement to the code?
That's pretty recent, but I can't tell if it's 2024. I know that's been within the last 5 years, I think.
And I've asked this question before. So we have, he may get a site plan, but he still has to meet all the building requirements, including the fire code. So why do we put the fire regulations in a site plan requirement?
It was requested to be included here. I
By
think
the
it was
fire
for-
marshal?
Yes, sir. I think it was for emphasis for no other reason. I agree with your comment.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions on this? No. Okay, at this point, I'd like to let the applicant come forward and make a presentation. Please let us know your name and your address.
Good evening, gentlemen. Tom Cook, Storage Central. A little bit of history here very quickly. In May of 21, seems like it was yesterday, but almost 3 years ago, we came in front of this very board when this project first came before you for site plan approval. You granted that approval that evening. Later that year, November of 21, we started construction. We presented, got the permits, started construction in late 21, worked all through 22, and opened the facility on February 1st of 23. So we're now 1 year operating. The project's gone extremely well. The demand, and that's part of the county, has met or exceeded our expectations. Occupancy is going very, very well. We're serving those communities there, but really we're serving all of Flagler County for not only storage, but for parking. We have premium parking in there. So when we submitted the original site plan back in 21, It was always under the assumption that we would do this in phases, and so we're here this evening for Phase 2. Occupancy's reached a level that we're really looking for approval on Phase 2, not that we're ready to begin construction tomorrow, but we'd like to get that depending on the occupancy continuing to increase. When we went in front of the TRC meeting recently, and everybody was there, fire safety, health, et cetera, obviously, when we would go to permit for Phase 2, we would meet all the current, be compliant with all the current regulations on fire safety, health, et cetera, et cetera. That's actually noted on this site plan. We'd have to increase the size of the septic field, for example. We're certainly ready to do that. That's been noted on there. We would be totally compliant with whatever the current building standards are at that time. So I think Adam and staff did a great job of positioning this and applying you or supplying you with all the relevant information. But that's what we're here for this evening, is to get that approval all within the current codes of Flagler County, to get that permission to go to Phase 2 at that time when we would develop the final site plan and the final construction plans for approval. Again, we'd meet all those regulations and codes. So, any questions, I'll be
Thank
happy
you.
to answer.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? I have a question for you. So you said you're not ready to build this right away?
Not tomorrow, but we're certainly here because,
Would you be waiting for this comp plan changed? Is that kind of what you're waiting for?
I think that comp plan, quite frankly, I think that comp plan change would probably be completed prior to us beginning any construction. I don't think it's certainly important to us. It's not a deal stopper for us, but just the research I've done and talking to staff, I think it's a possibility that could increase versus what we've learned in other counties. That 0.45 could be a little low, but I don't think we would begin, quite frankly. I mean, I think that's coming up later this year, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't believe we would asking for or gaining approval for a permit prior to that.
So Adam, just to cover my base here, because I kind of know the answer to this, you're assuming that it would increase from the 0.45, not decrease. You're like 100% sure of that, or 99% sure of that? Or the reason why I'm asking, because if he waits to get this, we're going to approve this, let's say, at that current thing. He wouldn't be able to, let's say they went down to 0.4. So does that then put him in peril now, or because he did not get his building permit prior to the change of that, or did we give him approval and he's going to be good? And if so, for how many years is he good for to build that project at now a lesser amount? I mean, you're assuming, and you're probably right, but I'm just wanting to know how that would work, quickly, because everyone wants to go home.
Yeah, good question, because my intent here with this was to not mess him up on waiting on it, and I did anticipate it getting bigger rather than getting smaller. But a building permit must be issued consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development code. So we're not able to issue something then that is not permitted, and so that.
Now, we're going to have
raised an
hearings
interesting
on
issue.
that comp plan change before it happens, and then readings, correct?
Correct.
So it would probably behoove the applicant, if that happens, just to keep your ear to the wall and run down and get a permit, just in case the unlikely happens, if,
No,
assuming, again, we all approve this tonight.
no, I respect that comment, yes.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right. I know what's going to happen here, but I'm going to open it up to the public comment. And if Peter would like to come forward, he can come forward. All right, I'm going to close public comment, seeing no one come forward, and I'll bring it back to the board. Does anyone have any comments or any motions?
I make them, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Mr. Goodman? Does he have a mic? Can you hear him?
Hello?
There
Here
you
we
go.
go. I'm making a motion to approve the motion as presented.
Okay, and we have a second.
I'll second it.
We have a second. Okay, any other comments on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call to question.
According to all the conditions.
According to all the conditions, yes. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so I'll call to question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion is approved. Okay, we are winding it down, we are at number 8, staff comments.
Only comment for the board is that on Monday, we will have our joint workshop with the Planning Board and the Board of County Commissioners. That starts at 3 o'clock. If you'd like to come early, you won't be able to sit with the board, but at 1 o'clock, we'll be talking about feral hogs with the Board of County Commissioners. But your joint workshop on the comprehensive plan update will start at 3 o'clock on Monday, this coming Monday. And so if you'd like to attend, please come and join us, 3 o'clock. Yeah, here, yes, sir. And it will be time limited. Apologies for that. We do have a night meeting then that starts at 5 o'clock. So that, but I do want to have that opportunity for you to. Our consultant will be present. They'll tell you about their findings, what they've been up to in the last few months, and what they've found out. They want to get feedback from you and from the Board of County Commissioners on next steps, next direction. So they'll have some very pointed feedback that they want to get from you all based on what they're going to be giving you as,
Will we be
here's what we
getting this
found out.
cold, or are you going to give us any type of synopsis or anything so we can look at it before the meeting?
We're trying, right now, we think what we're going to have is we'll have it posted by Thursday. So be watching for an email either from myself or from Lucy. We've had some, we've received the document on the presentation this morning, and so we're just working through a couple of edits on that, but we'll have it maybe as soon as tomorrow. More likely it'll happen Thursday.
Okay, board comments. Anyone have any comments from the board? I have 2 comments. One, does anyone else on the board have an issue with the agendas or the what we've been getting on, reading it on the iPad? Have you all been looking at it on your iPad, or have you been looking at it on PC?
I look at it on a PC.
Okay,
I mean, the
so PC doesn't seem to be the problem.
no.
It's, Jack, are you looking at it on the iPad?
Yeah, but if you don't touch the button after a while, it goes away and I gotta find my spot.
Were you able to go through the entire packet and look at all of the images?
On this, no.
On that, no.
Yeah, this you even like during the meetings as we go through and we're kind of scrolling through. It'll bounce and
It'll jump you back at the
it'll
beginning.
jump you back.
It's crashing. Is it
Yeah.
crashing to you guys too?
Yeah.
Are you looking at it on this, Mike? You have an iPhone or you have an iPhone and you're able to read the whole packet on the iPhone? Wow. Older iPhone, maybe? Yeah, maybe that's it too. He has an older iPhone. The reason why I'm bringing that up, because both on my iPhone and on this, I'm unable, as soon as I get to the large drawings, and so far, just coincidentally, they were all submitted by Kim Buck. It's not her fault, but I don't know what the problem is, but they kept crashing. They crashed on my iPhone. They crashed on Sean's phone tonight. They crashed on that. So anyway, hopefully, Adam, somebody can resolve this somehow, because they had to print me tonight an agenda on paper because I couldn't even look at the thing. After saying that, I did have something else, but whatever it is, I guess that's what happens when you get old. You lose. I'm losing it.
Oh, boy.
Okay. The last thing is public comments. Seeing no one from the public, we won't have any public comments. We have a motion to adjourn.
Sir, motion to adjourn.
Okay, so approved. Thank you.